Mom rejected my plea during a real emergency with my child. Then I cut off her money, exposed the favoritism, and rebuilt a peaceful life without her drama. I'm Kevin, 33, male. I've never posted anything like this before, but I've been holding this in for way too long. My mom, Diana, 56, female, has always lived in her own world, one where she's the victim, the queen, and the only one who matters. I spent years trying to be the good son, paid her bills, covered her groceries, stayed quiet while she treated my sister Melissa, 31, female, like the second coming and acted like I was just there. The favoritism was blatant. But when I asked for one small favor during a really rough week, she shut me down in a way that flipped a switch I didn't even know I had. That one moment set off lawsuits, guilt trips, full-blown delusion, and even drama at my wife's job. The real kicker, the ending, still makes people say, wait, you really did that? You'll want to hear how this one plays out. So I'm not the kind of guy who asks for help. Not because I'm trying to prove anything, but because I've learned that asking my mom for something usually ends up worse than just handling it solo. She's one of those people who can make even the smallest favor feel like you just requested a kidney. But this one time, I didn't really have a choice. My wife, Rachel, 32, female, got hit hard with a nasty fever. Not a sniffle and tea situation. This was, we're admitting, her for observation type stuff. Her temperature was through the roof, and the doctor didn't want to take chances. So she got checked in, and I got handed Eli, our 5-year-old son, along with the sudden realization that I had zero backup. Our babysitter was out of town. Rachel's side of the family lives too far away. Most of my close friends were either working or had their own kids to juggle. So, after going through every possible option, I caved and called my mom, Diana. Now, let me explain something about Diana. She lives in her own fantasy world where she's always the victim, always the one doing everything for everyone else, even when she's literally doing nothing. She's one of those people who can somehow twist reality to make it seem like she's the one being wronged, no matter what actually happened. Still, I figured maybe, just maybe, she'd help this once. For her grandson for a few hours. Not exactly a tall order. Hey, Mom, I started, already regretting it. Rachel's in the hospital. She came down with a bad fever, and I've got Eli with me. I just need someone to watch him for a couple of hours while I run a few things and make sure she's okay. I was expecting concern, maybe a hint of warmth. What I got was a sigh, the kind of sigh that lets you know she's about to say something unhelpful. I'm not your babysitter, Kevin, she said, all cold and righteous. I didn't sign up to raise your child. I swear I blinked 3 times in disbelief. No one's asking you to raise him, Mom. Just watch him for a little while. It's an emergency. You always act like I have nothing better to do, she went on, ignoring the fact that she hasn't held a job in, what, a decade? I'm tired of being treated like a servant. Mind you, I hadn't asked her for anything in years, literally years, but apparently asking her to spend time with her grandson while her daughter-in-law was in the hospital counted as some kind of moral offense. Then I heard something, a child's voice laughing in the background. Wait, is that Max? I asked. She hesitated, then answered like it was nothing. Melissa needed me to take him today. She and Todd had some plans. So just to be clear, she was babysitting for my sister, who by the way lives 10 minutes away and is married to a husband who works from home, but they get help. Me? I get a guilt trip. Okay, so let me get this straight, I said, already clenching my jaw. You're watching Max right now, but you can't help with Eli because... What? I'm not pitiful enough? Melissa is different, she said, like that explained anything. She's trying her best. She has responsibilities, right? And I guess I just sit around in a hammock all day while money rains down from the sky. You do realize I've been paying your rent for 3 years, right? I said. Bills, groceries, your phone, your, what was it, digital photo frame subscription? Don't throw that in my face, Kevin, she snapped. That's what children do. They take care of their mothers. And what do mothers do? I shot back. Because I thought helping each other out was part of this whole family thing. I'm not your servant, she repeated. You always act like I owe you something. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was insane. I'd been covering this woman's living expenses since I got promoted at work. I never asked for anything in return, not once. Meanwhile, Melissa's biggest accomplishment in the last 5 years was joining a yoga class. Then she dropped the final blow. Melissa is my daughter. She needs me. Cool. So I'm just the debit card with legs? At that point, Eli tugged my sleeve. He was standing there watching me, confused, maybe a little scared. I looked at him and realized this argument wasn't just annoying. It was pathetic. I was begging someone who clearly didn't see me or my son as worth the effort. I ended the call without another word. I took Eli with me and handled it myself. Rachel stayed in the hospital overnight. I brought Eli to the lobby, gave him snacks, let him watch videos on my phone while I talked to the nurses. It was chaos, yeah, but we made it work. And honestly, it felt better than being treated like a beggar in my own family. The thing is, it wasn't just about that day. It was everything building up to it. Years of being the responsible son, years of being expected to carry the weight while Melissa got praised for breathing. I paid Diana's bills, I made sure she had food, and the one time I truly needed her, she made it crystal clear where I stood. That was the day something in me just shut off. I wasn't angry, I wasn't sad, I was just done. I didn't even feel the urge to rant. There was no speech, no long conversation with Rachel. She was still in the hospital anyway, trying to fight off a fever that had knocked her sideways. She had enough on her plate, so I kept things quiet, cold. I started making lists in my head. First list, all the crap I had done for my mom over the years: rent, utilities, groceries, monthly extras that always had some vague explanation. One time she said she needed a deposit for medical things. Then I saw her flaunting a new phone case online with rhinestones shaped like a flamingo. I'm not even kidding. Second list, everything I'd ever gotten from her in return. Nothing. Not a thank you, not a warm meal, not even a framed picture of Eli. But you better believe Max's ugly macaroni art was front and center in her living room the last time I visited. A few days passed. Rachel came home weak but better. Eli was fine, resilient like most kids. Life started getting back into rhythm. Then came the phone call. It was Sunday morning, right after I sat down with coffee and some peace for the first time all week. My phone buzzed. Mom, incoming call. I stared at it. My first instinct was to mute it and walk away, but a part of me wanted to hear what she'd say. Would she ask how Rachel was doing? How Eli handled everything? I answered. Kevin, she said, skipping right past the greeting, you know it's almost the end of the month, right? Just straight into it like clockwork. I need you to send over the usual. Rent's due Wednesday, and I'm running low on groceries. I also need that refill for the card, for gas and laundry. I sat there in silence for a second, sipping my coffee, not even blinking. Yeah, that's not happening anymore, I said. Dead silence on the line. Then the voice changed, that fake sweetness she tries when she senses something slipping. What do you mean? You're just stressed, sweetie. I understand. It's been a tough week. No, I'm serious, I said, calm and clear. I'm not sending you another dime. Not this month. Not next month. Not ever again. There was a pause. Then she laughed. Not a normal laugh. One of those annoyed you must be joking kind of chuckles. Kevin, don't be ridiculous. I'm your mother. And I'm a husband, and a dad, and someone who's been bankrolling your lifestyle for 3 straight years while getting treated like garbage in return. She gasped like I just insulted the Pope. You think raising you is free? Do you know what I sacrificed for you? Oh, the greatest hits album was coming out now. I let her play it. You were a sick baby, Kevin. You cried all the time. I stayed up nights. I gave up everything for you, and now you want to abandon me? You mean the same way you bailed on Eli when Rachel was in the hospital? The same way you're sitting there playing Grandma of the Year for Melissa's kid while treating mine like an afterthought? Her tone dropped. Melissa's situation is different. You have a family, you have income, and I have bills, a mortgage, childcare. You think I'm just rolling in it. You make more than Melissa's husband. Cool. Let him pay your rent. Then came the yelling. You are being so ungrateful. I carried you inside me. I wiped your nose. I gave you life. Yeah, I said. And I repaid you with 3 years of direct deposits. That chapter's over. I could practically hear her pacing. I'd seen this routine before. The building rage, the manipulation, the switch flip from guilt to anger to full-blown drama. You're going to regret this, Kevin. Mark my words. Melissa would never treat me this way. Good. Then she can be the one to keep your lights on. She hung up. No dramatic exit, no tears, just a pissed-off slam of a phone call ending. I sat back. Finished my coffee and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief, like stepping out of a stuffy room and finally catching fresh air. Rachel came into the kitchen a few minutes later, wrapped in her robe, moving slowly but looking better. She could tell by my face something had happened. She called? She asked. I nodded. Wanted her monthly stipend. Rachel raised an eyebrow. And you told her the bank of Kevin is closed? She didn't say anything at first, just walked over, kissed me on the cheek, and grabbed a slice of toast. That was her way of saying finally. I didn't think that would be the end of it. With my mom, it's never that simple. But something had shifted. I wasn't the desperate to please son anymore. I wasn't going to get yelled into guilt trips or emotionally blackmailed by someone who made me feel like a walking debit card. I had a family now, a real one. A wife who appreciated me, a kid who thought I was a superhero for letting him eat a second dessert. That was the stuff that mattered. My mom could figure out how to pay her own bills. Maybe she and Melissa could start a GoFundMe for emotional damages. Either way, I was done playing the role of the forgotten son with the open wallet. I didn't make some grand speech about it. I just stopped, quietly. No texts, no explanations, no dramatic send-off. I'd been holding my breath for years in that role, and suddenly I could breathe again. For a solid week, things were calm. Rachel was home, still moving slow from the fever, but getting there. Eli was back to asking constant questions about sharks and making up stories about dragons that live in the bathtub. It was peaceful, a little messy, but peaceful. The kind of messy that makes sense. Then, of course, it couldn't last. Melissa texted me, short and dramatic. "Kevin, call me now. It's serious. Mom is in the hospital." I just stared at it. Not going to lie, I didn't feel alarmed, just annoyed. It read less like an emergency and more like bait. But I called her anyway, mostly out of curiosity. She picked up quick, voice already shaky like she'd been practicing. According to her, our mother had collapsed. Too much stress. Apparently being cut off from her monthly lifeline was just too much. Melissa said she took herself to the ER, drove herself, no ambulance, no unconscious episode, just a dizzy spell and a broken heart, I guess. Melissa started laying it on thick, said our mom had been crying all night, saying she felt abandoned, like she'd been betrayed by her own son, that this, whatever this was all my fault. I didn't say much, I just let her keep talking. It was the same pattern as always: turn a normal consequence into a moral crime, make it emotional, make it dramatic, and above all, make it my fault. The weird part was how calm I felt. A few months ago, this would have made me sick with guilt, but now it just felt recycled. After I hung up, I did what any rational person would do. I called the hospital. No shame about it either. I wasn't about to panic over some staged fainting scene. Sure enough, the nurse confirmed she'd been in mild dehydration, released that morning, not admitted, no floor, no overnight stay, just a quick pit stop and some paperwork. I wasn't even surprised. Honestly, the only shocking part was how fast they played the hospital card. I figured I'd at least get a week of passive-aggressive silence first. I didn't respond to Melissa's follow-up texts. Mom is emotionally devastated, or the one that hinted I should come by and talk to her. I figured if she wanted to cry about betrayal, she could do it with the air conditioning and vending machines the hospital provided. Rachel was the one who really helped me see it clearly. When I told her what happened, she wasn't shocked either. She just shook her head and said, "You know she's rewriting the story again, right?" And she was right. That's exactly what it was. A rewrite. Mom wasn't going to sit with the fact that she told me to get a babysitter while she babysat Max. She wasn't going to own up to anything. So instead, she turned it into this Shakespearean tragedy where I was the villain and she was some noble mother discarded by an ungrateful son. I remembered so many moments over the years that looked just like this one. Birthdays where she skipped Eli's party because she was too tired, but then posted selfies at Melissa's house an hour later. Family dinners where she'd spend the whole time praising Melissa for trying so hard while I got told I looked tired and should smile more. This wasn't new behavior. It was just the first time I didn't respond the way she wanted. No guilt, no check, no visit, just silence. And it felt good. That weekend, Melissa kept sending updates I never asked for. Mom still hasn't eaten much and she's trying to stay strong. I didn't reply to any of it. Not because I was being mean, but because I had nothing left to give. I spent that Saturday building a giant cardboard spaceship with Eli in the living room. He asked me if it could fly to Grandma's house. I said it couldn't. He asked why. I said, the batteries only work for people who actually want to see us. He laughed like it was a joke. I just smiled and handed him another marker. The guilt that used to live in my chest like some squatter's pet was gone, replaced by a quiet kind of peace. Sunday night, I got a notification from Facebook. Diana had posted a cryptic, passive-aggressive status. Some people only love you when you're useful to them, but I forgive. I always forgive because that's what real mothers do. 32 likes, mostly from distant relatives and old church friends. I didn't engage. I didn't even roll my eyes. I just turned off notifications for her posts. It wasn't worth my time anymore. That's the part people don't tell you about setting boundaries. It's not just some angry fight or dramatic moment. Sometimes it's just choosing silence, choosing not to respond, choosing to build a cardboard spaceship instead of walking back into someone else's drama. The silence from Melissa and Diana held for about 3 days after that. Not a peep. I figured maybe they'd moved on to sulking in group chats or gossiping with the cousins who only remember I exist when someone's in the hospital or dead. But then came Thursday. Rachel was back at work by then, still not 100% but stable. Her job's pretty chill, admin role at a clinic, front office stuff, phones, forms, scheduling, quiet space, clean, professional environment. You'd expect a certain level of decency from anyone who walks through the doors. Too bad decency isn't something Diana packs in her purse. I got a text from Rachel around noon, just 3 words, "She's here, unreal," followed by a second, "Don't come yet." The fact that she said yet was enough to make me throw on shoes and grab the keys. By the time I got there, Rachel was already standing outside the building, calm, arms crossed, still in her scrubs. And just a few feet away, Diana was being escorted out by a security guard, still muttering under her breath, still clutching that peeling gold purse like it was full of dignity she didn't earn. I pulled up, parked halfway over a line like a lunatic, and stepped out. Rachel just pointed at the front doors. She showed up like it was a normal visit, smiled at the receptionist, asked to speak to me, said it was urgent. Diana wasn't subtle. She walked in there like she was doing Rachel a favor, all warm voice and fake concern. People in the waiting room actually smiled at her. She always knew how to play friendly when she needed an audience. Rachel continued explaining while I stood there trying not to grind my teeth. Diana waited until they were in the break room and no one else was around. Then it flipped, totally unhinged. "I didn't interrupt," Rachel said. "I let her finish. She told me I'd ruined you." I blinked. "What?" She said, and I quote, "You poisoned my son's heart. You're the reason he's turned against me. You've been brainwashing him since the day you got married." I couldn't even process it at first. It was such a load of psychotic nonsense that my brain needed a second to translate. Rachel wasn't even mad. She looked tired, more irritated than anything. Diana said I'd robbed her of her motherhood, that you were always a good boy until I got in the way. She even said I lured you in with pity because I knew you were too kind to leave a sick girl alone. Rachel had the flu when we met once. That was apparently her sick girl story. Then she called me controlling, said I kept you from helping her, turned you into a cold, heartless man. I was shaking my head, trying to stop myself from laughing. "What did you say?" Rachel shrugged. "I told her this wasn't the 1800s, and that you make your own choices. Then I told her to leave the clinic immediately, or I'd call security." Apparently that set Diana off. She started raising her voice, not full screaming, but enough for people in the hallway to hear. Started talking about how she'd sacrificed everything to raise me, how some women marry good men just to break them. One of the nurses stepped in, tried to calm her down. Diana turned on her too, called her a nosy brat. That's when the front desk called security. "She left before they arrived," Rachel said. "Stormed out, calling me a snake." A snake? That was a new one. Rachel took a deep breath, looked at me like she was finally letting herself exhale. "I didn't want to tell you right away, but I knew she'd spin it her way somehow, so I figured I'd better get ahead of it." I nodded. "Thanks for handling it." "I didn't do anything special," she replied. "I just didn't let her pull me into her insanity." I offered to drive her home. She insisted on finishing her shift. She wasn't going to let Diana ruin her day. Back at home, I kept thinking about the whole thing. How Diana had fully convinced herself that Rachel was some evil mastermind, like I was just a brainless idiot following orders. It was laughable, but also sad, like watching someone self-destruct with the same fire they expect everyone else to put out for them. Around dinner time, Rachel finally got home. She looked exhausted, but fine. We didn't talk much. Eli was too busy pretending his spaghetti was a monster. The next morning, Melissa sent me a long text full of passive digs. I heard Mom tried to visit Rachel. She was trying to make peace. "You two didn't have to embarrass her like that." "Make peace?" She went to Rachel's workplace to rant about mind control. "That's not peace. That's delusion with lipstick on it." I didn't answer. Instead, I printed out a timeline of every deposit I'd made to Diana over the last 3 years. I stored it in a folder and added texts, voicemails, screenshots. I wasn't planning on doing anything with them just yet, but the way things were escalating, I figured it was better to be ready. Rachel supported it. She didn't push me either way, but she said if she's this bold, she might try something worse. And she was right, because Diana wasn't done. She thought she could guilt me, fail, then drag Rachel into it, fail again, and still keep pushing. That told me something important. She wasn't just entitled, she was dangerous. And I wasn't going to let her anywhere near my wife or my kid again. After the stunt at Rachel's work, I knew Diana wasn't just being dramatic, she was spiraling. It's like she couldn't handle not being in control of the narrative anymore. She was used to playing victim and being believed without question. That stopped working, and now she was looking for whatever scraps of leverage she could still grab. At this point, I blocked her number. Not out of spite, just so she couldn't blow up my day. Melissa tried to play in between, but I ignored most of her messages too. I didn't need a translator for delusion. That was the week the envelope showed up. No name on the front, just my address typed. Inside, a printed document with a court seal. Small claims summons. Diana was suing me for breach of verbal contract and emotional distress. I sat down at the kitchen table and read it twice. Then a third time just to make sure I wasn't missing a punchline. She actually wrote on paper that I had promised lifelong financial support and that suddenly ending payments caused her significant harm, both emotional and economic. Rachel walked in while I was holding the paper like it was radioactive. She finally did it, I said. She took it to court. Rachel read it over, didn't even flinch. Guess she wants to get laughed out of a courtroom now. Honestly, I wasn't even that stressed, mostly annoyed. But if she was taking it that far, I'd better be ready. So I pulled out the folder I'd started after her work visit. It had everything: bank transfers, timestamps, texts, even the screenshot of her flamingo phone case she posted the same week she claimed she couldn't afford groceries. I also included the call log showing how I asked her for one favor, watching Eli, and how she said no while actively babysitting Melissa's son, plus the hospital statement showing her collapse was nothing more than mild dehydration with a vending machine visit. Court day came quick. It wasn't some dramatic trial like on TV, just a basic small claims hearing in a dull room with folding chairs and a judge who looked like he'd seen every kind of nonsense the city had to offer. Diana was already there when I walked in. Full black dress, hair curled, like she was attending a funeral. She didn't look at me, just sat stiff with a folder of papers on her lap. I wasn't nervous. I didn't even bring a lawyer, didn't need one. They called our names and we went up. When the judge gave her the floor, Diana launched right into it, like she'd been rehearsing in the mirror every night. She told the judge she was an abandoned elderly woman, that her only son had promised to support her indefinitely, and that his sudden refusal caused her to suffer. She pulled out highlighted bank statements showing the money I'd sent her over the years like it was proof of a binding agreement. The judge, to his credit, let her finish without a word, just nodded occasionally, glanced at her paperwork, and waited until she sat down. Then it was my turn. I handed over my folder and walked him through the timeline, how the payments were never part of a contract, verbal or written, how I supported her out of kindness, not obligation, how the money stopped only after she refused to help when my wife was hospitalized and she was watching my nephew instead. The judge skimmed the papers, paused on the screenshot of her Facebook post where she was bragging about buying herself a little treat the same week she told me she couldn't afford bread. Then he turned to Diana. "Ma'am, I see no indication that your son entered into any agreement to support you. It appears these were gifts, not payments in exchange for services." Diana's jaw twitched. "But he always said he would take care of me. He told me I could rely on him, and now he's decided not to." "That's not illegal," the judge replied. "There's no law that says an adult child must financially support a parent." She tried one more swing, claiming emotional distress, but the judge cut her off. "Ma'am, being upset by someone's personal decision is not grounds for a financial judgment." That was it. Dismissed. No further discussion. She just stood there like she'd been slapped in slow motion. She didn't say thank you, didn't even gather her papers. She walked out stiff, like a mannequin on a bad day. I didn't follow her. I waited a few minutes, then left the courthouse through the side door. I wasn't in the mood for another meltdown or one of her lectures in the parking lot. Back home, Rachel had already made lunch. Nothing fancy, just grilled cheese and tomato soup. I sat down and filled her in. She tried to play the emotionally abandoned mother card, I said, dipping a sandwich. Judge didn't buy it. Rachel raised her glass of water like a toast to public records and paper trails. We laughed, not because it was funny, but because there was finally nothing left for her to twist. She had taken it to the end of the road and got shut down in front of a real authority figure, someone who wasn't emotionally manipulated by tears or guilt. It felt final. There were no calls that evening. No texts, no follow-ups from Melissa, no cryptic Facebook posts or shared quotes about being wronged. Just quiet. And it was glorious. 2 weeks of peace. 2 whole weeks where I didn't have to deal with flying guilt trips or weird phone calls pretending to be emergencies. It was the longest stretch of silence I'd had since I stopped paying Diana's bills. I'd almost started to believe it was over. Then Rachel got a text from one of her friends who lives near Melissa. "Pretty sure your mother-in-law just moved in with your sister. Saw her unloading bags with that leopard print purse." So there it was. Diana had officially landed at Melissa's place. And yeah, I saw it coming. Her ATM, me, stopped funding her rent, so she most probably got evicted. Melissa was always the favorite, always the one Diana claimed understood her. If anyone was going to take her in, it was her. What did surprise me was how fast it went downhill. By day 3, Melissa texted Rachel saying her mom was adjusting, code for she's already making people miserable. By day 5, the updates changed. Less spin, more tension. Apparently Diana had started her usual routine, comments about how Todd never helps enough, how Max should eat fewer processed snacks, how Melissa's laundry smelled cheap. Same playbook. She'd show up, act like a saint for 48 hours, then slowly turn into a live-in manager no one hired. Then day 6 hit. Todd gave Melissa an ultimatum, either Diana goes or he does. And that's when Melissa showed her true colors. She didn't defend her mom. She didn't get emotional. She didn't try to compromise. No, she folded instantly, packed Diana's bags while she was taking a nap, and told her she had to go. Rachel found out before I did. "Melissa kicked her out this morning," she said, handing me her phone. "Told Todd she wasn't going to risk her marriage over this mess." I sat down and laughed harder than I had in months. So after all the favoritism, the blind loyalty, the pedestal Diana built for Melissa, she got kicked out like a bad roommate the minute things got uncomfortable. And not because Melissa grew a conscience or had some breakthrough. No, she just didn't want to lose her husband. She took Diana in to look like the good daughter, but when it became inconvenient, she flipped without hesitation. All self-preservation, no spine. Rachel scrolled to the next text. She didn't even let her finish her coffee. Just dropped her off at a bus stop near the shopping center. Now that was brutal. Diana didn't call me, she didn't message. But I heard she tried calling some of my cousins that afternoon, asking if anyone had a spare couch. Nobody bit. Her meltdown at court had apparently made the rounds, and people were keeping their distance. I imagined the look on her face sitting at that bus stop with her leopard print purse and nowhere to go, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because it was the first time in her life she had no one left to blame but herself. She gambled everything on Melissa's loyalty, and Melissa folded like a lawn chair. A few days later, I ran into Todd at a gas station. He looked free, like a man who'd just moved out of a haunted house. "Surprised you're still married," I said. He shook his head. "I told her if she ever pulls that again, we're done for real." Then he said something that stuck with me. "Your mom doesn't know how to live anywhere without trying to run it. It's like the second she steps inside, she thinks she owns the place." I nodded. "That's been her thing forever." "She called me Kevin," he added, dead serious, looked me in the eye and said, "I'm acting just like her son, like it was an insult." I actually laughed. "She's been trying to use my name like a curse word lately. Doesn't realize how much that backfires." He smiled, shook his head, and got back in his car. The next update came from someone on Facebook. A random acquaintance of Melissa's posted a vague status about watching someone kick out their own mother. No names, but it didn't take a genius to figure it out. Diana had officially become someone else's cautionary tale. Melissa didn't reach out, not to apologize, not to vent, not to explain. I guess she figured I'd find out eventually, and she was right. I found out. I just didn't care. She wasn't some victim in this. She'd only helped Diana out of image and guilt, and when it cost her peace, she hit eject so fast it gave Diana whiplash. It wasn't noble. It was convenient. Rachel summed it up perfectly. She wanted the credit of being the good daughter without the cost. Exactly. Diana probably saw it as betrayal. I guarantee she never imagined Melissa would be the one to throw her out. But that's what happens when you build your life on favoritism. Eventually, the golden child drops you too. By the end of the week, Diana had no place to stay, no money coming in, and no one in her corner. And the one person she'd always dismissed, me, was at home with a stable family, a peaceful house, and not a single ounce of guilt left. That didn't stop her from trying one more time. She showed up. I don't know how she got to my neighborhood. Bus, Uber, guilt-powered broomstick. Either way, there she was, sitting on the porch like a statue, arms crossed, face tight, and that purse with the peeling gold zipper sitting beside her like it was also exhausted. Rachel saw her first. She tapped the window and said, "Your mother's out front." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. No yelling, no build-up, just me standing there while Diana looked up like she'd been waiting years for this moment. "Kevin," she said, voice worn and flat. "I have nowhere to go." I didn't respond. "I called everyone," she went on. "Melissa blocked my number. Todd won't take my calls. Your cousins pretend they don't see my messages." I still didn't respond. She stood up slowly. Her eyes scanned the front of the house like she was mentally appraising it, like maybe she was already imagining where her throw pillows would go. "I know I made mistakes," she said, "but I'm still your mother." I finally looked her in the eye. "You're not here for an apology. You're here because you ran out of options." She flinched, not much, but enough to know she felt it. "I don't need much," she said, "just until I figure something out." "And what happens when something takes a year?" I asked. "Or 5? "It won't," she said quickly. "I just need time, a chance, somewhere safe." For a moment the silence stretched. Rachel was probably watching through the blinds. Eli was inside on the tablet. Life had finally become quiet, manageable, free. And here stood the woman who'd spent years stomping through my peace with entitlement like it was her birthright. Everything in me wanted to tell her to leave, but I didn't. I stepped aside. "1 week," I said. "No longer." Her eyebrows twitched, like she didn't quite believe it. I didn't either, to be honest. She nodded and picked up her bag. She walked in like she hadn't been kicked out of 3 homes in a courtroom in the span of a month, like she was just coming home from vacation. She smiled at Rachel, who did not smile back. She waved at Eli, who ignored her. I didn't explain myself to Rachel that night. I didn't need to. She knew exactly what this was. It wasn't mercy. It was containment. A final, slow-moving crash test that would prove once and for all who this woman really was. Not to me, I already knew, but to herself. Diana had spent her whole life seeing herself as the one who gave, the one who suffered, the one who deserved. She was about to spend a week watching everything she broke from the inside out. Melissa had already tossed her. Todd left without blinking. The cousins went radio silent. And now she was stuck living under the roof of the same son she humiliated, sued, and treated like a disposable wallet. For the first time, Diana had no audience left to perform for. No golden child, no backup plan, just the mirror. And yeah, I let her in because watching her squirm under that silence was worth every second of the chaos she'd created.